10 prominent Saudi women's rights activists have appeared in court for the first time since they were detained last year. They were arrested in May, in the weeks before a ban on women driving cars was lifted. Their case has raised global scrutiny of Saudi Arabia's human rights record after the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Andrew has more on that for us, on what's being said about the case online and more on the activists. Andrew.
Thanks, Hazem. Well, the hashtag Stand With Saudi Heroes is something that we noticed today, being used worldwide to show support and spread awareness of this case. Another Arabic hashtag we saw is Torturing Detainees is a Crime. That's being shared to call for protests outside of the courthouse. Now, human rights advocates say that they're worried about the trial taking place and the potential sentences.
This represents an escalation now in the kingdom, where the authorities are treating women's rights activism and defending women's rights as a crime. And so we call on the authorities to immediately release these peaceful activists and women's human rights defenders.
And let's talk about a few of the people involved in this case. Now, internationally, the case of al-Hathloul has probably the most amount of coverage. She was at one point ranked as one of the most powerful Arab women in 2015 and was later photographed here with the UK's Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle. But less may be known about the other 9 detainees. Well, Iman al-Nafjan, along with Loujain, advocated for an end to discrimination against women in the kingdom. In 2016, both activists signed a petition with more than 14,000 signatures asking for King Salman to end Saudi Arabia's system of male guardianship. Now, Aziza al-Yousef is an academic and women's rights activist. She's the one that delivered that petition to the palace. Saudi authorities then accused her of having what they called suspicious contact with foreign parties. Now, Samar Badawi, who you can see here with Michelle Obama and Hillary Clinton, she was arrested after campaigning on behalf of her brother, Raif. Raif Badawi is a Saudi blogger who was arrested in 2012, sentenced to 1,000 lashes and 10 years in prison for criticizing Islam. Now, the only male who's among this group of 10 is Mohammed al-Bajadi. He's one of Saudi Arabia's most prominent activists and founder of a Saudi civil and political rights association, which is now banned. It tried to hold security forces accountable for using excessive force. So several activists who campaigned against the driving ban and 4 other causes were then unable to celebrate the lifting of the driving ban because they were behind bars. Now, let us know what you think about these charges, these activists, and the cases taking place inside the kingdom. You can get in touch with us on Twitter using the hashtag AJNewsGrid.
Thanks, Andrew. Now, Abdulaziz El-Muayyad is a Saudi human rights activist. He joins us via Skype now from Dublin. Thanks very much for being with us. So just tell us, broadly speaking, what do you make of these developments, and will the global spotlight on Saudi Arabia make any difference at this point to their policies?
For sure, the global pressure make difference in the Saudi regime. The Saudi regime looks highly to their international image. So the pressure is the only way to push this regime to take the right way. Now, we have to be very clear. This is an absolute monarchy, and this court is the same as the general attorney who put these girls in jail. It's the same authorities that torture them and put them in solidarity for a long time. So so having what's happening now is happening after the pressure of the international community. The Saudis have no respect for human rights or Saudi people. And what we are seeing is in Jamal case, in the Yemen war, and also the way that the Saudis is treating these ladies is a clear example that this regime have no consideration of or respect to any human life or any rights that people ask for.
But is the international pressure that you're talking about making any difference at this point? And we're reminded as well, of course, of the case of the Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi and his murder in the consulate in Istanbul last year. The Saudis took a lot of, bad press, if I can call it that way, over that. But it didn't seem to make much of a difference. And there are many countries that continue to make billion-dollar deals with Saudi Arabia over everything from arms and investment and so on.
Actually, the pressure, and especially after Jamal's death, have made a lot of difference in the situation. Now we've seen that the Saudis, the Saudi regime have changed the court just 8 hours before the trial start. The ladies have no charges before they go, and they're not allowed to have lawyers. But they changed it from the terrorism law, terrorism court, the special court, to a criminal court, which is a good sign. And this regime, you're right, like they buy weapons. Saudi Arabia is the biggest importer or buyer of weapons in the world. And there is a lot of lobbies that stand with this industry that try to put the Saudis above the international law. But the fact is, the Saudis take their power from the international community, and now the international community, nobody can stay in the fence anymore. Everything is clear, and people and politicians are losing votes because of standing with the Saudi regime. This is a fascist regime. This and standing with it have its limits. So it's easy money. We don't have any parliament. It's one man signing checks. So yes, some politicians, I would call them cheap politicians or unmoral politicians, would prefer our money over our blood and over our suffering. But the fact is that the nations and the population in these countries doesn't accept that. So we are seeing a shift, a big shift in the relation. And we're seeing that the Saudis are giving down to this pressure. So it's a balance. People like our easy money. Some politicians do, but it's not that easy anymore, especially with the mistakes that the Saudi regime is doing under Mohammed bin Salman.
Good to speak with you, Abdullah El Muayyad. Thanks very much for being with us. For more news on the trials of the Saudi activists, you can go to our website, al-Jazeera.com. There you'll find all you need to know about this story. Our teams of international